At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. I think LSU is going to make some big plays in the passing game coming up this fall. We'll talk about it in 15 minutes. Glen West along in 30 minutes. Listen to a little bit of baseball podcast earlier today. The D1 folks went through their top 25. I'll give you thought on what they had to say about Jay Johnson's LSU squad. LSU's got a running back commitment. There are rule changes that are being discussed in college football. We'll discuss some of that in the second hour. Sharif Ishak talking Saints. So as you can tell, plenty to do. Let's crank it up the way we do every day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
I think a lot of you that listen to me understand my working theory on the college football optimism calendar. And it's been adjusted a little bit based on a different signing day, a new transfer portal window. There are some things that aren't quite the way that they were for a long, long time, but the general premise of it still rings very true. In fact, we're not even done with the 2025 season yet. We've still got a game to play, but the optimism overdrive that I generally saved for a couple weeks in February, a little bit of the spring, and then heavy in August has kind of swung a little bit. And right now, January is optimism season for a lot of people. And I would suggest, just my read of the room here, that there's a lot of people in this fan base, in this market, in this listenership that are feeling pretty good about where LSU's football team is headed in 2026 and program is headed under Lane Kiffin. And I think that's great. I think it's awesome. I share a lot of those sentiments. I think some of the things that have happened over the course of the last 6 weeks have been awesome for LSU. I think Lane Kiffin has a chance to be a great head coach here in Baton Rouge. I think him bringing the majority of his Ole Miss offensive staff that has produced so much great offense is great for LSU. I think it makes it extremely likely that LSU is very competent to excellent on offense when Lane Kiffin is the head coach here. I think keeping Blake Baker here and him suggesting that he's on the Kirby Smart track and that he's not just going to jump to a group of 5 job and he wants to take one of those big jobs that won't involve his family moving twice in 3 years is an awesome thing for LSU. And in so keeping Blake Baker, you keep Corey Raymond and you keep Kevin Peoples and you keep Jake Olson. I think all that's awesome. I think going to get the number one quarterback in the transfer portal is fantastic. I think the fact that you've gone and nabbed a ton of high-level wide receivers and you've now got 5 running backs is great. DJ Pickett's coming back. Trey'Dez Green's coming back. Harlan Berry's coming back. Whit Weeks is coming back. TaMarcus Cooley's coming back. You get what I'm saying. I understand a lot of reason for optimism here. And I'm on board with everything I just said. There's not one thing I just said that I'm even leaning the other way on. I think all of that is excellent. I have a concern right now about 2026 that if you just focus on all the other stuff, you may not be as concerned about. And it's not something that I've unearthed here. This is something that everyone is talking about, but I find in my Twitter mentions and in text message threads and in searching on message boards and like looking at the pulse of the fan base, I find that offensive line's being a little bit swept under the rug. And I'll just say that I'm concerned about it. And then I'll lay out kind of why, and you can just draw whatever conclusions you want to have. Here's where LSU's offensive line sits today. And keep in mind, I don't have a massive problem with a lot of the guys that LSU had on the roster moving on. Like, it didn't work. This is what the portal is for. You got a new offensive line coach. You allow that coach and the head coach and the general manager to go identify talent, bring it in, put together a group. And if it doesn't include a lot of the guys from last year, so be it. So what do you have? Well, you got 5 guys coming back. You've got Braylon Moore, huge. Talked about it yesterday. That's important. That's your center. Okay, that's a working point. Weston Davis, he was your right tackle. He struggled, but he's a freshman. He's a basketball player 4 years ago. You can't teach 6'7". You can't teach basketball feet. He's got every opportunity to improve with that incredible talent base, but let's call it what it is. As a freshman, he struggled. You got Solomon Thomas. Well, he didn't play this year. He got hurt in camp, didn't play. 5-star, great measurables, didn't play. Then you got the Bordelon brothers, who have been depth pieces in your program. One's older than the other. One's been around 4 years. One's been around 1 year. But you get the point. Depth pieces. You had a really struggling offensive line this year, and it was not suggested that either one of those guys was going to come in and be a factor in that group that struggled. So that's the 5 guys you got back. Veteran center, returning right tackle who struggled, true freshman going to a redshirt freshman, and Solomon Thomas that didn't play, and the Bordelon brothers who are depth pieces. That's what you return. What have you brought in the transfer portal? Well, you got Darren Stray, who was a redshirt player at Kentucky last year. He was a 4-star recruit. He's 6'7", but he didn't play. You got William Satterwhite, who was a backup at Tennessee last year. Highly thought of recruit. Did play a little bit in his redshirt freshman year, but it was in mop-up duty largely. Good insurance policy, I think, for Braylon Moore, but not a proven SEC player, a guy that 2 SEC staffs now have thought was good enough to put on their roster. You got Jaquan Sprinkle, who you bring in from the FCS, from the MEAC. You've got Jacoby Jones, who's a junior college player. Those are your 4 ads right now. Bench player at Kentucky, bench player at Tennessee, FCS player, JUCO player. That's 4. So with the 5 guys that you had, those are the 4 you brought in. That's 9. And then you've got 2 guys in this class, Bryson Martinez and Ryan Moret, who are going to be true freshmen. That's 11. So you're short on numbers, and I think short on proven talent. That's where my concern comes in. Now, look, I told you last week in a segment, I said, look, all we have to do is look right down the street at the Saints to find examples of guys off the beaten path on the offensive line that have turned into great players. Ramon Bushrod, Taron Armstead, Jari Evans. Like, this happens all the time. And if you implicitly trust the LSU staff in these evaluations, great. I have no reason not to. Ole Miss wasn't trotting a bunch of 5-stars out there on the offensive line the last few years. They ran it down people's throats at times. So you can certainly do that. I'm just kind of looking and suggesting concern. Not like panic, not like disaster, not like not fixable, just I'm concerned about it. But the portal's not closed yet. So where else can they look? Where else can you find guys to come in on the offensive line and immediately add to this group? Well, it's 2 spots for me right now. The first is Devin Harper. Devin Harper was a 4-star recruit from Shreveport, went to Calvary, guy that LSU had committed on the previous staff. And if you look at him as a high school player, he was thought of as a top 10, actually top 7 interior offensive lineman in the country by On3 and 24/7. Coming out, 6'4", 300 pounds. Ole Miss listed him north of that, closer to 315 this year. And I listened to 2 Ole Miss beat writers today suggest that he was the likely starting left tackle for Ole Miss in 2026. Likely starting left tackle. That is a little bit different than some of the guys that you've brought in who were considered depth pieces or just very, very young. Harper's young too. But the heir apparent at left tackle for Ole Miss moving forward. That's a guy I think it's reasonable to suggest you could get in here, plug and play. And it's a guy committed to LSU and then committed to the staff that is now working at LSU. Keep in mind, different offensive line coach. I get it. But Kiffin, Weiss, McDonald, Smith, offensive side of the ball, scheme, system, fit, all that. Practices, program, the whole thing. So he's committed to the home state school once, obviously liked some things about it, and is committed to this staff and played for this staff for a year. That's a guy I would feel great about bringing in. And I think you could plug him in as a starter, and then all of a sudden I can work off at least 2 pieces settled. If not 3, if you want to count Weston Davis, you can count him. And if all of a sudden I've got 3 pieces settled, well, that makes me feel better about just having to plug in those 2 spots with the rest of the guys that I've listed. And then you go to the real prize. Then you go to the difference maker. Then you go to, well, this would change my feeling on everything. If they can add Jordan Seaton, you change my conversation, you change my tune real quick. Now, there's probably a lot of you that are listening to me going, who is that? Probably a lot of you listening that are going, duh, obviously. If you're in the first camp there, no idea who Jordan Seaton is, he was a 5-star plus by On3, went to Colorado. Has played there a couple years, has played exceptionally well. He is massive, he's got big feet, and he's got an opportunity to be a first-round pick in next spring's draft. You bring him in to play left tackle, I change my tune real quick. Because now, all of a sudden, I've got a first-round pick left tackle. I've got a proven commodity at center. Might have Devin Harper. That's a guy that you plug in and he could play. And now I've got Weston Davis, Solomon Thomas, Bordelon brothers, and 4 transfer portal ads, albeit not proven, but 4 guys, and I'm trying to fill 1 spot. If LSU adds Devin Harper and Jordan Seaton to this group, all of a sudden, I will be talking about a change in expectation. They field the line they currently have. No Harper, no Seaton, which is impossible because there's only 11 of them. That's just not a reasonable size of an offensive line. You have to add more guys. But if they went into a season with these 11, I would be petrified of LSU's offensive line play. Petrified. I would not, in my opinion, feel that was close to good enough to compete at the highest level of the SEC. My opinion. You add Harper and Seaton, I change that immediately. I say, yeah, I think they're going to be really good on offense and they got a chance to be really good on defense. This can be a really good team. Now, the schedule's brutal, and that's a different discussion. I'm not having a schedule discussion today. I'm having a personnel discussion today. I'm talking about the offense, and I'm talking about a group on the offensive line that they have made some strides. They have added some pieces. I'm just a little bit skeptical of the pieces they have as far as plug-and-play SEC-ready guys. And I think there's a chance that Harper and Seaton are significantly better than what they've brought in. A chance. I'm not a talent evaluator. I'm not a scout. I'm not a general manager. I'm just giving my opinion. Right now, I'm a little scared of LSU's offensive line. It can change if you can make some additions. Now, I think there's a real good chance Devin Harper can come to LSU. Seaton, I have no idea. One nugget that was shared online is that when Seaton was being recruited, he was being recruited by everyone. He's a 5-star plus. Alabama was in the mix. And Eric Wolford, who's LSU's offensive line coach right now, was his main recruiter at Alabama. How well that relationship was forged, I have no idea. But if you can pull that guy in, that's a difference maker. Left tackle, that's a difference maker. So it's a concern of mine. I think they're going to address it moving forward. If they can address it with the right pieces, you can change my tune in a big, big way. Hopefully, that's LSU's plan. Right now, they've done a really, really good job in the transfer portal. They really have. They have gone out and gotten a lot of different bodies at a lot of different positions to fill a lot of different needs, which they had to do. But the offensive line is that one spot that I find is still lagging a little bit behind. See if they can make a change to that. That's our opening drive, presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC. All right, I want to talk about Will Leavitt. And one of the things I've found in some research with him and these wide receivers that makes me really, really excited about next year's offense. Talk about that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Speaking of excited, you should be excited. Baseball season's around the corner. So is softball season. If there is a youth baseball player under your roof, a youth softball player under your roof, bring them by Marucci. What a resource for young people in this city, in this market. Get them by and take some hacks in an indoor cage. It's useful. Get ready for the season, especially when it's freezing cold on days like today. You don't want to be outside in the cage. You can go inside in the cage. Get ready, swing the stick a little bit later on this spring. Also, you can go take a tour of where the official bat of Major League Baseball is made, 1,200 of them every single day. So whether you're looking for fun, whether you're looking for an activity, whether you're looking for a chance to improve your game, Marucci is a spot you can do all of that. They ask you to step into the heart of it, the heart of Major League Baseball. What's more baseball than a bat? The official bat of Major League Baseball made right here in Baton Rouge. They cranked this thing up 22 years ago in a backyard shed in 2004, and to see what it's grown into is truly amazing. So go check them out. It's Marucci. You can see him online and book a tour at MarucciSports.com. It's MarucciSports.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Talk with Glen West, Go 24/7, coming up in about 12 minutes. I'm assuming Glen was there with Matt McMahon a little bit earlier today. They revealed an update on Deion Thomas's status, still in question for tomorrow against Kentucky. We'll talk about that, and certainly transfer portal as well with Glen, so we'll do that coming up in about 12 minutes. I've been doing some research on Sam Leavitt and kind of digging into what he did at Arizona State the last couple of years. I've got a piece up at LouisianaSports.net today called Portal Profile. It goes over the knowns, the objective facts, the fit here at LSU, and the kind of my projection for what Sam Leavitt becomes here at LSU. And I'll be very honest with you. I'm going to work off of the assumption that a 21-year-old, otherwise healthy, young, athletic body is going to respond well to modern medicine. You can call that foolish. You can say that's presumptive. And I wouldn't call you wrong. But until I see that he cannot play the way that he once did, I'm just going to work off the assumption that he can. And if we need to amend that based on lack of practice time in August or based on lack of production in games early in the season, we can do that. But for right now, I'm going to suggest that Sam Leavitt's going to be a pretty healthy dude that can make throws, make plays with his feet, and pilot the LSU offense to his full potential in September of next year. That's my assumption. I'm working off of it as an assumption, not a fact, but that's where I am to start this conversation. And there's something in my research and looking around that I really found to be encouraging. And I realized that when you look at LSU's offense in 2025 and then look to what Sam Leavitt has done and what Lane Kiffin has done, you're really comparing apples, oranges, and bananas here, because LSU's offense last year stunk, and Lane Kiffin's offenses are always great, and Sam Leavitt's been a very productive player. But just one of these statistics that I think hurt LSU greatly this year is the lack of explosive plays. Like, Ole Miss led the nation in 20-plus yard pass plays. They had 75 of them this year. 75. LSU was 105th in the country in that category with 31. Less than half. Less than half. Now, I realize Ole Miss played an extra game, but 2 extra games, actually. But still, less than half. That's something that has to change, and I believe that it will, because if you look at Ole Miss and you look at not just this past year with Chambliss and that group, look at 2024. Same category. Ole Miss was second in the country. They had 79. Only Texas had more with 80. Then you look at 2023, a year prior. LSU led the country, but Ole Miss was third. They had 69. So this is, in the last 3 years, Ole Miss has been in the top 3 all 3 years. First, second, third. And now you bring in Leavitt. And as a redshirt freshman at Arizona State, when he played a full season, he set the Arizona State freshman record for total offense. It was the 8th best in school history, and one of the reasons was because they were able to get the ball down the field. He had 8 pass plays of 50-plus yards that led the Big 12. And he did this, leading the Big 12 in chunk plays down the field, without putting the ball in harm's way. Pro Football Focus only tagged him, this is in 2024, with 5 turnover-worthy throws on the season. You would think of a group that really stretches the field and really pushes the ball down the field, the ball would be in harm's way a lot. It wasn't for Leavitt. He, 1, took care of the ball, and 2, hit on those big plays to lead the Big 12 in that number. And then you think about pairing the coach, who's been in the top 3 in the country in big plays through the air the last 3 years, a quarterback who hit a lot of big plays, and then you start to look at the wide receivers that LSU has targeted in this transfer portal cycle. And they found them in some obscure places, I would suggest. But they have something in common. Jackson Harris. It's at Hawaii. I get it. But he averaged 19.7 yards per catch. Jace Brown, big-time playmaker at Kansas State, averaged 16.6 yards per catch. He was over 17 last year. Trey Brown at Old Dominion, 20 yards per catch. You know that Trey Wilson from Florida, when healthy, can be explosive. He was a 5-star recruit. You know Nick Anderson was a big play guy now 3 years ago, which is saying something, but 3 years ago at Oklahoma. You've got big bodies and guys with a track record of making big plays. Some of them are just winning down the field with speed. Some of them are making guys miss. But I don't care how you make a 50-yard play happen. Just make them happen. I don't care how you average 20 yards per catch. Just average 20 yards per catch. And these are the types of players that Lane Kiffin is targeting. This is an interesting thing that I'm curious to see play out over Lane Kiffin's time at LSU. Because one way to get guys who average a bunch of yards and put up big plays is to go get Jeremiah Smith and go get Jamar Chase and go get Malik Neighbors and go get Odell Beckham Jr. and go get these big-time monster recruits that come in and immediately produce huge plays because of their immense talent. And the other way is to find guys who were quote-unquote diamonds in the rough who can make those plays and have those kinds of traits, but maybe a little bit under the radar. Like, to make a Major League Baseball analogy, because you're operating on basically no salary cap here in college football, and you don't in Major League Baseball, you can either go find the big, huge, high-price free agent, or you can play a little bit of money ball. And Lane Kiffin has kind of had to play a little bit of money ball because you can't sign the 5-star recruits at Ole Miss. He just hasn't signed them. And I'm curious if when he gets a full cycle under his belt, if he can sign these big-time high school players. I mean, obviously Jabari Mack's a nice get, but he was committed to the previous staff. Or if he is going to go to the portal and get guys from New Mexico and get guys from Old Dominion and Hawaii and where you've seen him shopping for these guys. Now, going to Kansas State and getting a big-time player there is not exactly bargain bin shopping, but it's interesting. You look at LSU's guys' average yard per catch this year. Berrien Brown, 10. Kyle Parker, 10. Bauer Sharp, 10. Aaron Anderson, 12.1. Xavion Thomas, 12. Nobody up there near 20. And you realize that LSU wasn't stretching the field. They were throwing a bunch of screen passes. But you could not get the ball down the field. And Lane Kiffin has identified some guys who have won down the field. He's got a quarterback who's won down the field, and he knows how to win down the field. And I think, assuming that the offensive line holds up, which I talked about for 15 minutes in the first segment, if you missed it, they should be able to win down the field. Now, I would have told you in August of last year with Garrett Nussmeier and Chris Hilton and Nick Anderson and Aaron Anderson and Berrien Brown and the group of guys that you brought in here that you would have won down the field consistently, and you never did. So nothing's for sure. But, man, like these are the ingredients to the gumbo. You have a quarterback that can do it, a coach that can do it, and wide receivers that are doing it. Now, obviously, a lot of these wide receivers aren't doing it against Texas A&M and Alabama and Texas. But in this day and age, you're trying to find guys that have traits, and these are the traits. So as I've been combing through these numbers and looking through these highlight tapes and trying to see what pieces fit together in what way, this is something that became very, very evident, that all of these guys have a history of getting big plays. And those change games, change scoreboards, change the energy level in stadiums, and they help you win. Ole Miss is a testament to that this year. A lot of big plays, a lot of wins. LSU, not a lot of big plays, not a lot of wins. I love what Lane Kiffin is putting together from that perspective with this transfer portal class and then this roster assembly. I think it's very, very, very encouraging. So that's a lot of LSU talk for the first 30 minutes. We'll continue it. We're going to talk to Glen West. I got a little bit of a baseball nugget coming at the end of this hour, so stay tuned for that in about 15 minutes. We'll talk to Glen when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, Fabry Chevrolet and GMC. The entire inventory is online. You can find it all at FabryChevrolet.com. That is FabryChevrolet.com. You want a new car? They got it. Want pre-owned? They got a huge selection, and it's just a short drive away or one click away at Fabry Chevrolet on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Under new ownership since October 1st with the Fabry family, but you know the Fabry family. They've been here 35 years doing business in Baton Rouge. You get great customer service, get a wonderful service after the sale, and you also get a pleasant buying experience. That's the promise they make you there at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. You're looking for a Chevy Suburban? They got it. Chevy Tahoe? They got it. Want a truck? They got Silverados. You can also find the GMC Sierra, GMC Yukon. How about a Denali? They got those up there in St. Francisville as well. On Highway 61, go by and see them if you're in the area. Make the short drive or check out that inventory and see what you like online. It's at FabryChevrolet.com. That's FabryChevrolet.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
D1 Baseball pegged LSU as the number 2 team in the country in their preseason poll. I got a thought on that to close out the hour coming up in 15 minutes. For now, we'll stick to football and basketball with our guy Glen West, senior writer over at Go 24/7. He's with us on Tuesdays. Glenn, how are you?
Doing great, Hunt. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Probably a little bit better than the folks in LSU's basketball program at this current juncture. 0-3 with Kentucky coming in tomorrow. And Matt McMahon just met with the media and discussed De'Don Thomas's availability. What can you tell us about the Tiger point guard at this point?
Yeah, still a lot more of the same. He's still listed as day-to-day. They're going to check him out in practice today. He's been ramping up a little bit more in practice, it sounds like, but he hasn't been cleared for full contact yet. I would probably say he's questionable to doubtful to play if I had to just guess and put an educated guess on it. But, they're hopeful that he can return sooner than later. But, I think for McMahon and for this program, they need him back ASAP because their offense is just falling off of a cliff, and some of their offensive issues have led to, pronounced defensive issues as well, as we've seen in these last couple of first halves where LSU's just gotten off to really poor starts. So I'm not expecting great news on the De'Don Thomas injury report, but we'll see if today's practice maybe changes the tune on that a little bit.
What chance do you give him against Kentucky without him?
I think they can win this game. I mean, Kentucky is not the Kentucky of, past years where they've been just really, really a standout program. They've had their struggles this year. I think they've had their struggles defensively. But, look, De'Don Thomas is the floor general of this thing, and LSU's offense just has not been very good, without him these last 3 games. So, you're going to have to see some lineup combinations that are a little bit different. I think that's something that I took away from McMahon's press conference today. Maybe not necessarily the starters, but certainly I think guys like Mozzie Mosley could certainly see more expanded reps and opportunity on the floor tomorrow night. You're going to need Jalen Reese to play well, not turn the ball over, and then you're going to have to get your front court to play better. I mean, Mike Nwoko and Markel Sutton, they just have to be better for LSU. Sutton had a better second half against Vanderbilt on the road, but Nwoko, I think he's averaged 6 points a game over these last 2 games. They have to get double-digit numbers from him. He has to be more of a presence in the post, and I think that's a big thing that they've been working on these last couple of days. It's just a ways to get him involved in the offense again. McMahon mentioned the screens, lots of different screening actions they can put Nwoko in to maybe free him up, but somebody has to be able to complement Max McKinnon more consistently than what they've had so far to this point.
How much water can they realistically take on without De'Don Thomas and still feel like they can make a run when he comes back? It just feels like you're running out of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, not much more. I mean,
Yeah.
they're off to an 0-3 start. They play, I think at Arkansas and at Florida next week. Is
Yep.
that correct?
That's correct.
Those are two road games that you're not going to be favored in. So you've got to handle your business here in the PMAC. They've already lost one that they probably should have won against South Carolina. But Missouri and Kentucky are very beatable teams. So I think you have to win one, if not two, to really feel okay about your opportunity here going forward. And I don't know that they're going to have the firepower to do that offensively. They're going to have to really step up and get a lot of different help from a lot of different guys to really survive here in the short term without Thomas if he's not able to go.
Glen West, senior writer, Go 24/7 is our guest. Let's transition over to football. Things were a little thin at running back as of 2 weeks ago, and they don't feel that way now. How do you feel about where LSU's running back rotation sits now that they've added 3 and then brought Caden Durham back?
Yeah, major kudos there for LSU to get Durham back in the picture. He was not one that I thought they had a great chance of convincing to come back, but as things unfolded here over the last couple weeks, and you got Harlan Berry to return, you got certainly the decision from Kawan Lacey to stay at Ole Miss. I think LSU had to reevaluate their options, and look, at the end of the day, Durham entered the transfer portal, and he's been a top 10 portal running back since he entered. So technically, if you just look at the raw numbers there, he's somebody that you should want as an LSU team back into the program as one of the better running backs available right now in the portal. So really good job by getting him back on board. He had a very productive conversation over the weekend with Kevin Smith, the new running backs coach. And then, I think it was a really big pickup today. They get Dylan Jones from Wisconsin. He's a guy that has some Big Ten experience. He's rushed for 63 yards and a touchdown against Michigan this last year. Rushed for 69 yards the very next week against the very stingy Iowa defense. So he's somebody that has a little bit of experience in his back pocket. He's shifty. I think he's a guy that can break tackles in between the line of scrimmage. And I think that they are looking at this room now in a much better spot than maybe they did even 3 or 4 days ago. I mean, it's been a really quick turnaround, and obviously Harlan Berry will lead that group, I think, going into next year. But they have some good complementary pieces that I'm excited to see in this scheme and in this offense.
How do you feel about where the offensive line sits right now?
Yeah, that's my major concern. I mean, I think that they've done a good job of retaining Braylon Moore, retaining Weston Davis, who I think, look, the last staff was very high on his long-term potential, and obviously this staff is high on his long-term potential too, or else they wouldn't have tried so hard to convince him to come back and not enter the portal. So I think that's a good sign there that if they get him developed, he could be a piece for you. Solomon Thomas still hasn't announced what he's going to do yet, but he's a very talented interior lineman that I think now that he's healthy could give you something here. I honestly don't know a whole ton about some of these guys that they brought in, just because there's not a whole lot of experience. When you talk about William Satterwhite from Tennessee, or the guy they got from Kentucky the other day. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of proven production right now with this group with some of the new additions that they've made. We'll see if that changes here over the next days and weeks to come, but it's going to be a major duty for Eric Wolford, the offensive line coach, and certainly James Craig, who they brought back over from Ole Miss as well. Those guys are going to have to get in the lab and develop these guys over the next 9 months, because I just don't think that you can really sit here and say that there is a definitive starting lineup in this room right now, outside of maybe Braylon Moore at center. They've got 2 tackle positions they've got to fill between now and September, and then 2 guard positions that are still very much up in the air as well.
Got a thought on Sam Leavitt? I guess we haven't talked about that, and he hasn't been officially with LSU since we spoke. So what's your thought there?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was the long-term target here. I think really going back to mid-December, you kind of started to hear buzz that if he were to enter the transfer portal, LSU would be a program that would have major interest in him. Obviously, they took their eye off the ball there for a second, and almost kind of got themselves into trouble there. But I thought it was really important that Lane Kiffin made that decision to fly out on Friday in between his Tennessee and Miami visits to kind of ease those waters. And look, I think the big concern here with Leavitt is that he's not going to be here for you in the spring and probably into some of summer as well. this is a very slow healing injury that he has, and then once it's healed, you've of course got to be careful with the rehab as well to not further compound anything. So it's a risk that LSU's taking here, but I think it's a risk worth taking because I think this is a potential 2-year guy for the Tigers if he sticks around and has a good 2026 season, and then can maybe build towards something in 2027 as well. But he's the legit guy, the dual threat guy, the guy that you turn on the tape and you say that guy can thrive in a Lane Kiffin offense. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. He's got a lot of weapons around him, as we've talked about on the wide receiver core. You've got Trey'Dez Green, you've got Harlan Berry. This is an offense, at least from a weapons and quarterback perspective, that is I think has a chance to be pretty lethal in 2026 with this coaching staff and this scheme.
Is there a spot outside of offensive line you specifically think they need to address pretty quickly with a bigger name?
I would look at the edge rusher spot on defense. I mean, I like Jordan Ross. I think he took a nice step forward here as a sophomore. You've got Gabriel Relaford coming back off of injury. I like him. But there's just not a whole lot of proven production behind those two right now. And, that was the thing that LSU made sure of that they had plenty of last year at this time, with Pyburn and with Patrick Payton and Jamari Butler, bringing in guys with multiple years of starting experience and double-digit starts over a 2 or 3 year span. They don't have a ton of that right now in that room. So, maybe a couple of these freshmen can be ready, a couple of these younger players can develop, but if there's an opportunity to go add another impact edge rusher, I would be all over that if I were LSU.
Looking for team coverage, recruiting coverage. Glen's got you covered over there at Go 24/7. He's with us on Tuesday. See you in the PMAC tomorrow, Glen. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Want to remind you about our friends at One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. They don't have to do a whole full-scale renovation, even though they can. They just did one for our guy Brian Haldane, morning shows on Talk 107.3. But you can do something small, like a tub-to-shower conversion. You take out that tub, put in a new walk-in shower, change the aesthetic of your bathroom, change the functionality of your bathroom, and maybe use the space a little bit more effectively. If you've got a standing shower right now and a tub, and you want to use that tub space for a shower, make that standing shower into a linen closet. You can do that. David and his team are happy to help you with all of that. But looking for something small, David told me that, look, the tub-to-shower conversion can be done 3 to 5 days. Not super invasive, not super expensive. And they do have some financing availability as well, 0% up to 18 months if you qualify. So go check them out at onebathandclosets.com. All right, to close out the hour, I've got some D1 baseball sound. The gang from D1 baseball, it's Aaron Fitt, Mike Rooney, and then Joe Healy, Kendall Rogers. They went through their top 25. You know by now that LSU is number 2 on that list. I'm going to let you hear what they had to say about the Tigers here early on and kind of give my thoughts on it. So we'll do that to close out the hour when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust started up in 1910. 116 years later, they are still here. No matter where you're listening to me, whether that's here in Baton Rouge, over in Dutchtown, Jones Creek, up towards Hammond and St. Tammany, St. Tangipahoa, maybe down St. John, St. James, or in Lafourche or Terrebonne Parish. No matter where you are in Southeast Louisiana, there is a branch near you. There's 25 of them, 25 branches near you. And their management team averages 25 years with the bank. People begin to work there. They're part of your community. They stay there, and they stay in your community. Every decision that's made on commercial loans, on residential loans, is made right here in Southeast Louisiana. Every call that's fielded is fielded in Southeast Louisiana. It's a community bank with the resources to do everything that you need because they've got those 25 locations. It's First American Bank and Trust. Stop in and see them at First American Bank and Trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Wrapping up hour number 1. In hour 2, we're going to be real busy here. LSU added a running back in Dylan Jones from Wisconsin. I'll tell you about that and kind of the entirety of the LSU running back situation at 2 o'clock. Got a little bit of grab bag at 2:15. Trinidad Chambliss, his attorney Tom Mars is making some waves on social media. There are some proposed rule changes by college football coaches earlier this week. Once De'Don Thomas's availability, Mike Tomlin has stepped down as the head coach of the Steelers. If you missed that news, which has happened within the hour, he's done after 18 years in Pittsburgh. Sharif Ishak's going to be with us at 2:30 talking Saints. So lots and lots to do over the course of the next hour and 15 minutes. But I wanted to finish with a little bit of LSU baseball here at the end of the hour. Generally speaking, we play shorter sound bites. That's the way you would like to keep things. But I felt like in this instance, it was okay to go a little bit over a minute here. This is from the D1 Baseball Preseason Rankings podcast. Mike Rooney, Joe Healy, Aaron Fitt, and Kendall Rogers sat down and went through their top 25. They hit them pretty quickly. And I just clipped the LSU portion of that. They've got the Tigers ranked second in the country. And this is Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball talking about why LSU was ranked so high.
I'm going to say right off the top, it's a different team. No more Kate Anderson, Anthony Irons, and Chase Shores, like the three big guns on that staff. Probably the three biggest guns on that staff in Omaha. Casey Evans also was in that group. Casey Evans is back now, and he's a rising sophomore that I expect to follow in kind of the same trajectory that Anderson took, which was, impact freshman, going to be a superstar sophomore. It's legit. I think first team All-America kind of ability, just with the 4-pitch mix and the impact bat missing stuff and the pitchability. It's all pretty special. So I'm not worried about the Friday night piece. I know he's got to prove it as a Friday night guy. It's a different role, but he is legit, just like Anderson was legit. Sometimes you just know. The lineup is really good. I know there's no more Jared Jones, no more Daniel Dickinson. Those are two important pieces, but Garrett Curiel's a superstar. That's two names, Runes. Monster Milam. Straw that stirs the drink, just heart and soul. Give me a guy like that at shortstop on my team, and I'm going to feel pretty good about my building everything else around him. That's the guy. That's the real glue guy, outstanding defender, energy guy, leader. And then you talk about winning the off season. Once again, gosh, they just do a great job with the pieces that they bring in. And Trent Caraway from Oregon State, big time pick to click for me. I think he's going to have a huge year now after as a junior. He's certainly shown the talent before. He needs to make some adjustments. They felt confident they could get him to make those adjustments. And Zach York, I'll just throw one more name out there from Grand Canyon. Just a big old donkey from the left side with hitability and power that they're expecting big things from. So I think they did a good job replacing what they needed to replace.
All right, that's Aaron Fitt talking about LSU's baseball team. A couple things to react to there. I think it's reasonable to question a new Friday night guy who's never been a Friday night guy. I think it's reasonable to question that. I also think it's reasonable to suggest that Kason Evans has every bit of ability that you need. Pitched in the biggest moments for LSU last year. Obviously, he came in and really saved that Little Rock game. Kept Little Rock where they were. I think he struck out 9 or 10 in a row at one point in that Monday Little Rock game when LSU restarted the rain game that Ianson had started game 2 in the Omaha winners bracket against UCLA. Evans came in and was fantastic in that spot as well. So reason to believe that he's got every bit of bat missing ability and intestinal fortitude to go out there in the biggest moments and be that guy. But you want to see it, and so you'll want to see it. Kate Anderson was essentially a nobody at this time last year. We told you that we thought he was going to be the first guy, but you didn't know if he was going to be the Friday guy, and he turned into that, and I think Kason Evans can be that as well. Another piece to that is look at Monster Milam. He had a bad year last year. Like Stephen Milam had a bad offensive year. He had a brilliant postseason. He destroyed West Virginia and was great in Omaha. But he had a bad year. He got pinch hit for in the SEC tournament. LSU was struggling against Ole Miss, couldn't get anything going offensively, and Jay Johnson took the bat out of Stephen Milam's hand. And I think that got to Stephen Milam a little bit. He said, really? That's what's going to happen around here? Hold on. And it snapped into gear. But my hope is that he is the same player he was for those 3 weeks of the postseason for the whole season this year, because you're going to need that. You need that guy who's a proven bat from both sides, who was awesome as a freshman. When they went to Chapel Hill, he was among their best hitters at that point in that regional setting. And for 11 weeks last year, he was in the deep freeze. So he needs to come out of that and be much better. I have no concerns about Curiel. I think Brown's going to be better. I think Aaron Beatty takes a step forward. I think there are a lot of guys that were on the team last year. I think Stanfield is what he is, which is completely serviceable in the role they're asking him to play. Not going to be a first-team All-American, but he can play good defense in left field, hit some line drives, steal some bases, and hit towards the bottom of the lineup. But Milam's got to be better than he was. I need Stephen Milam hitting second or third on this lineup, not buried down there in the 7 hole like he was for a lot of last year. And that's somebody that Fitt talked about and thinks a ton of. But, yeah, and then you got the transfers. And Trent Carraway, I think, is going to get the first shot at third base. And he needs to be the guy that he was projected to be when he left high school as a huge recruit, and that he was in the regional last year where he just lit it on fire, and not the guy that he was for most of the season when he wasn't very good in the regular season. And Carraway had a bad year last year too, but he's got massive physical tools, and Jay Johnson's taken some transfers in and taken them up a notch offensively. I don't have a lot of doubts about Zach York. I saw a lot in the fall. I'm not going to say I saw enough in the fall because it's fall baseball, but his bat-to-ball skills, the ability to hit the ball the other way, and the power behind it. Like, y'all will see him in time if you haven't yet. You can't miss Zach York. He weighs 300 pounds. You don't see a lot of 300-pound baseball players. But if you just take that out of the equation and just look at him swing the bat and look at the exit velocity and the way he compresses the ball and the way he uses the whole field and the way that some power shows up as well, like, he's a really good college hitter. And I think he's going to be a really good college hitter when that time comes in SEC play. I don't have a big worry about his floor. I have some worries about Carraway's floor because his floor is striking out a ton and hitting 240-something. And at that point, he probably loses his job if that's the case. My sincere hope is that that's not what you see, and you see a guy that really plays well all year long. But I think LSU warrants preseason number 1 consideration because I don't love UCLA's pitching. I know that they brought in a potential ace. I know that they added a transfer as well. The guys that I saw in Omaha, I didn't love, and we'll see what they are this year. Their position player group is good, but I'm curious about the pitching, and I think LSU's talent level is, and then the coaching staff has earned the benefit of the doubt. But I don't care at all that LSU's not preseason number 1. Like, if you ask my opinion, I would give it, but my care level on what anybody else thinks is 0 at this point. So that's it for hour number 1. We'll come back and talk a little bit of football, the running back situation. We'll do that after SportsCenter.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carver and his team are phenomenal folks to deal with on the insurance side of things. I think it's always a good time to think about hurricane season when it's not hurricane season. And it is firmly not hurricane season. But we know one is coming. So why not take this low-pressure moment to make sure your property policy reads the way that it should? Because we have hurricanes down here. Is your building limit set properly? Is your business interruption limit set properly? How'd you come up with that number? Is there a co-insurance penalty? What's your deductible? All these things are things that sometimes we don't look at. You just look at the premium at the renewal. Right now, you know you're not going to get a hurricane that's going to blow through. Not right now. So take a chance to get some second eyes on that insurance program and make sure that when that season rolls around late this summer, you're ready to go. The Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you out with that. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.